The radar screens on USS Harry S. Truman lit up red. Alarms blared across the deck. Sailors snapped awake. Pilots rushed to their jets. The Red Sea sky was suddenly filled with missiles and drones closing in on America's most powerful carrier strike group. The call came over the ship, inbound, inbound. All stations, battle stations. In moments, chaos erupted. But what happened next shocked even the most experienced commanders. Stay with us. Watch till the end. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon. You will see how the U.S. hit back with full force. 24 hours before the attack, USS Harry S. Truman was patrolling the Red Sea. The carrier strike group included destroyers, cruisers, and support ships. Its mission was routine on the surface but vital beneath. Freedom of navigation, maritime patrol, and intelligence gathering were its top priorities. The region had seen rising tensions for months. Iranian-backed Houthi forces in Yemen had been launching drones and missiles at commercial and military targets. The U.S. Navy was tasked with protecting shipping lanes and deterring attacks. The Truman Strike Group was a floating fortress. Its deck carried F/A-18 Super Hornets ready to scramble at a moment's notice. E-2 Hawkeyes hovered above, scanning hundreds of miles for threats. Guided missile destroyers like USS Gravely and USS Ramage provided a layered defense. Each ship worked in unison. Communications between them were constant. Cooperative Engagement Capability, or CEC, linked radar and targeting systems. This allowed one ship to fire interceptors using data from another ship's radar. It was a network designed to spot, track, and destroy threats before they could reach the carrier. Life on the Truman was mostly calm. Sailors slept in shifts. Deck crews maintained aircraft. Pilots ran through checklists. At night, the carrier was a city on the water. Lights flashed, engines hummed, and the crew moved with quiet efficiency. None of them knew what was coming. Intelligence reports had hinted at unusual activity near Yemen's coast, but nothing concrete. Levels were normal. The last 24 hours had passed without incident. But below the surface, tensions were rising. U.S. intelligence had intercepted chatter from Houthi communications. Reports suggested a special operation might be underway. Analysts warned that missiles could be fired from the coast toward maritime targets. The Pentagon reviewed options. CENTCOM monitored satellite feeds. Every hour, the risk of escalation grew. Yet the Truman continued its patrol. The mission had to go on. The strike group's deployment was strategic. The Red Sea is one of the world's busiest maritime corridors. Oil, commercial goods, and military supplies pass through it daily. Any disruption could have global consequences. The U.S. Navy presence was meant to ensure stability. The Truman and its escorts were a signal deterrence through power projection. The carrier's presence alone was a warning to any adversary considering aggression. As night fell, the crew went about normal routines. Pilots performed last checks on F/A-18s. Deck crews prepared for routine flight operations. Bridge officers monitored navigation and radar. Radar operators scanned the horizon, seeing the faint blips of civilian and commercial vessels. And at 3:57 a.m., a small signal appeared. The radar operator noted unusual activity over Yemen. The blips were too coordinated to be random. They suggested multiple launch points. Someone called it in quietly, but the officer in charge didn't raise alarms. At that moment, the situation seemed manageable. Unknown to the crew, Houthi forces had prepared a coordinated strike. They had modified Iranian missiles and drones for anti-ship use. Launchers were hidden along the coast. Operators had trained for months. Timing was critical. The plan relied on surprise and speed. The strike was not meant to fail. Its goal was to test U.S. naval defenses, to send a message, and to exploit any weakness in the Truman's protective shield. The stage was set. The Truman's crew was unaware. The Red Sea was calm, moonlight reflecting on the water. The carrier, a 100,000-ton fortress, floated silently, but its presence drew attention. Enemy radars had already locked onto the strike group. Houthi commanders prepared their final orders. Every missile, every drone, every trajectory had been calculated. And in the next few minutes, the Red Sea would erupt in a storm that Truman had trained to survive, but had never faced at this scale. By 4 a.m., the tension became almost tangible. Sailors shifted in their bunks. Some had dreams interrupted by alarms. Others sensed something in the air, the feeling only those at sea can know, the calm before a storm. The carrier strike group, so powerful, so ready, was about to face a challenge that would test its systems, its crew, and its very survival. 4 a.m. The first missile lifted off from the Yemeni coast. It was fast, low, and deadly. Radar screens on USS Truman blinked. Operators called out, "Missile inbound, bearing 080, altitude low." Within seconds, more missiles followed. 12 in total, launched almost simultaneously, accompanied by swarms of armed drones. The sky over the Red Sea turned into a corridor of death. On the deck, alarms rang. All stations, battle stations. The crew moved with precision learned from years of training. Pilots sprinted to their jets. Deck crews secured loose equipment and prepared for sudden explosions. Officers shouted orders over the comms. The USS Truman had defenses, but the number and coordination of the incoming missiles pushed systems to their limits. USS Gravely and USS Ramage immediately locked onto multiple targets. SM-2 and ESSM interceptors streaked into the sky. Smoke trails followed missiles as they burned through the night air. Tracers from CIWS systems flashed in bursts. CRAM units rotated and fired at drones that slipped past the missile interceptors. The battle was layered outer, middle, and inner defenses working together to protect the carrier. The Truman scrambled FA-18 Super Hornets. Pilots ran through checklists as engines roared to life. Within moments, aircraft lifted off the deck, climbing rapidly to intercept enemy launch sites. Electronic countermeasures deployed to jam missile guidance systems. The E-2 Hawkeye hovered above, relaying real-time tracking data to the ships below. Radar screens were a blur of activity, with hundreds of blips moving at high speed. Below deck, sailors felt the vibrations of near misses. The ship shuddered from shockwaves. Smoke briefly filled the hangar deck from anti-air explosions. Communications were constant. Target intercepted. Debris falling. Another inbound. Every alert required immediate response. The crew remained focused despite the fear. Training took over. Panic had no place here. On the enemy side, Houthi operators adjusted fire. Some missiles were intercepted, others destroyed by CIWS, but a few managed to get dangerously close. Each near miss was felt across the carrier, a thud, a shudder, a reminder of the fragile line between survival and disaster. The coordination of multiple launch points had created confusion, forcing U.S. defenses to spread thin. Within minutes, counterattacks were underway. FA-18s struck back with precision. Targets included missile launch sites, radar arrays, and storage bunkers along the Yemeni coast. Explosions illuminated the night, visible even from the carrier's bridge. Smoke columns rose into the sky as enemy positions were neutralized. The battle became a mix of defensive maneuvers and offensive strikes, a dance of steel, fire, and precision. Throughout the chaos, command decisions were rapid. CENTCOM communicated with the Truman's captain. Retaliation plans were reviewed and ready. Every missile, every jet, every sensor contributed to a strategy designed to survive the first wave and neutralize the threat. The coordination between ships and aircraft was seamless, demonstrating the effectiveness of modern naval warfare systems. By 4:15 a.m., the first salvo of enemy missiles had been largely neutralized. Drones continued to pose a threat, but CRAM and CIWS systems were proving effective. The crew's training and preparation had kept the carrier safe. No direct hits occurred, but the intensity of the attack left everyone shaken. Alarm sirens had finally quieted, replaced by tense communications about damage assessment and readiness for potential second strikes. Within minutes, Washington was notified. The Pentagon, already monitoring satellite feeds, realized the scale of the attack. The U.S. response would not be limited to defense. Planning for a surgical retaliation had begun. The Truman had survived the storm, but the world watched closely. The 4 a.m. missile strike had demonstrated vulnerability, readiness, and the willingness of adversaries to test its naval power. The strike concluded with the carrier intact. Damage was minimal, though crews were physically and mentally exhausted. Smoke cleared, alarms stopped, but tension remained. The Truman had faced a well-coordinated missile and drone storm and survived. Response, however, was about to begin, and it would leave a lasting impression on the region and the world. The USS Harry S. Truman's survival was not luck. It was layered defense, precision, and technology combined with crew training. Modern U.S. carriers rely on multiple defense systems, each designed for a specific range and threat. The first line of defense is long-range interceptors like the SM-2 and SM-6 missiles, fired from Aegis-equipped destroyers and cruisers. These missiles can detect and destroy incoming threats hundreds of miles away, targeting enemy missiles before they approach the carrier. The second layer uses Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, or ESSMs. They handle mid-range threats that slip past the outer interceptors. ESSMs are fast, agile, and designed to track small, fast-moving targets like cruise missiles and drones. In this attack, the ESSMs were critical. Somehow the missiles maneuvered unpredictably, using terrain to hide from radar. ESSMs tracked and destroyed them with high success. The inner layer is close-in defense. The Phalanx CIWS is a radar-guided Gatling gun that can fire 4,500 rounds per minute, targeting missiles and drones at close range. CRA, another point defense system, uses missiles to engage threats within a few kilometers of the ship. Both systems operate automatically, but are monitored by trained operators. They are designed to be the last line of defense. During the 4 a.m. strike, both CIWS and CRAM systems prevented several near misses from hitting the Truman directly. Aircraft from the carrier also contributed to defense. FA-18 Super Hornets are equipped for both air-to-air and air-to-ground missions. They launched within minutes to intercept drones and destroy launch sites along the Yemeni coast. Electronic countermeasure pods on these jets jammed missile guidance systems, causing several incoming missiles to lose track of the carrier. E-2 Hawkeye early warning aircraft provided real-time radar coverage, giving ships and pilots data for targeting and threat assessment. Without this airborne radar network, the attack could have been far more dangerous. The attack itself used modified Iranian missiles supplied to Houthi forces. These included Noor and Quds cruise missiles, capable of flying at low altitude to avoid radar detection. The drones were armed with explosives, small but effective enough to damage ships if they reached them. Houthi operators coordinated the launch across multiple sites to maximize confusion and overwhelm the carrier. Its layered defenses. Their strategy relied on timing, surprise, and multiple attack vectors. Communication and command were key. The Truman Strike Group relies on Cooperative Engagement Capability, or CEC. This system allows ships to share radar and targeting data in real time. One destroyer can fire an interceptor using radar data from another ship or from airborne platforms. This creates a unified defensive network, where all assets act as one. During the missile storm, CEC allowed destroyers to fire interceptors at threats they could not even see directly. Damage control and training also played a role. Every sailor knew their station. Firefighting teams, flight deck crews, radar operators, and command officers worked in sync. Drills practiced over months and years ensured split-second reactions. The result was a defense that minimized risk and prevented catastrophic loss. Finally, the U.S. retaliation required precision. Target selection had to consider collateral damage, international law, and military objectives. Tomahawk cruise missiles, launched from destroyers, are guided by GPS and terrain mapping systems. They hit launch sites, radar stations, and missile storage facilities with pinpoint accuracy. FA-18s targeted remaining drones and infrastructure. The combination of carrier air power, missile strikes, and electronic warfare ensured a decisive counterstrike, while limiting risk to civilians and allied forces. In summary, the 4 a.m. attack was a test of U.S. naval technology and training. Layered missile defense, airborne radar, point defense systems, and disciplined crews all worked together. The Truman Strike Group survived a coordinated strike from dozens of missiles and drones. The technical details show how modern naval warfare depends on speed, coordination, and redundancy. Without these systems and procedures, a carrier strike group would be highly vulnerable to attacks of this kind. By 6:12 a.m., the U.S. Navy's retaliation was underway. Precision strikes launched from destroyers, and aircraft hit multiple missile launch sites, radar installations, and storage depots along the Yemeni coast. Tomahawk cruise missiles streaked across the sky, guided by GPS and terrain mapping, each programmed to strike a specific target. FA-18 Super Hornets, armed with bombs and electronic countermeasure pods, destroyed remaining drones, and disrupted enemy communications. The scale and speed of the counterattack left even regional observers stunned. Damage assessment from the attack showed minimal impact on the USS Truman itself. No missiles penetrated the carrier's defenses. There were no fatalities among the crew, though several sailors experienced minor injuries from shockwaves and sudden movements during the alert. Structural inspections confirmed that the ship's armor and systems had held. The carrier remained fully operational, able to launch aircraft and maintain defensive readiness. International reactions were swift. The United Nations convened an emergency session to address the strike and potential escalation. Iran denied direct involvement, but warned against further U.S. military actions. Neighboring countries expressed concern over regional stability. Meanwhile, allies of the United States publicly supported the Navy's right to defend itself and praised the effectiveness of its response. The rapid retaliation demonstrated not only military capability, but also political will. The retaliation also sent a clear strategic message. Houthi forces, along with their backers, understood the cost of attacking a U.S. carrier strike group. Key infrastructure along the Yemeni coast was destroyed or severely damaged, reducing the capability for future attacks. For the United States, the operation reaffirmed the effectiveness of modern naval defense systems and showcased the integration of ships, aircraft, and command and control networks. Beyond the immediate military outcome, the incident shifted regional calculations. Shipping lanes in the Red Sea remained secure, at least temporarily. Adversaries learned that a coordinated attack against a carrier strike group would provoke a swift and overwhelming response. The world witnessed the reality of U.S. naval power, not just as a deterrent, but as an active force capable of rapid and precise retaliation. By mid-morning, the USS Truman strike group had regained calm. Crews conducted damage assessments, reloaded defensive systems, and maintained a state of alert for any follow-up attacks. Command officers reviewed the sequence of events, noting both the successes of their defense and areas for improvement. The incident would serve as a case study for years to come, highlighting both the human and technical elements required to survive a modern missile assault. The attack and subsequent retaliation emphasized a fundamental truth of modern warfare: preparedness. Training and technology can prevent disaster, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Truman strike group had faced one of the most coordinated missile and drone attacks in recent memory and emerged intact. The world had watched, learned, understood the stakes. A single carrier represents both immense power and a high-value target, one whose defense demands constant vigilance and readiness. The 4 a.m. missile storm against USS Harry S. Truman was more than a military incident. It was a test of human endurance, technology, and strategy under extreme pressure. For the crew, those moments of alarms, explosions, and incoming missiles were terrifying. Every sailor, pilot, and officer had to trust their training and their ship. The carriers, destroyers, and support ships became a single organism, reacting in seconds to threats that could have destroyed them. The human factor, courage, discipline, and focus, was as important as any weapon system. For the United States, the incident sent a powerful message. Modern naval forces are prepared for the unexpected. A carrier strike group is not only a symbol of power but a shield against aggression. The layered defense systems, from long-range interceptors to point defense weapons, demonstrated that even coordinated missile storms could be countered. The integration of radar, communication, and aircraft made the Truman strike group resilient. Every layer worked, every system contributed, and every sailor played a role in survival. Strategically, this event reminded the world of the balance between deterrence and escalation. Adversaries may test limits, but attacks on U.S. forces will meet swift and decisive responses. Precision strikes that neutralized launch sites and missile depots showcased that retaliation is going to be effective without unnecessary destruction. The U.S. Navy displayed not just power but control, ensuring that military action was measured, targeted, and purposeful. The incident also highlighted the evolving nature of naval warfare. Drones, missiles, electronic countermeasures, and cooperative engagement networks define modern conflicts. The Truman faced threats that were fast, coordinated, and deadly. Survival depended not only on armor and weapons, but on rapid decision-making, coordination, and innovation. Lessons from this strike will shape training, defense planning, and naval strategy for years to come. Finally, there is a human perspective. After the alarms faded and the sun rose over the Red Sea, crews on the Truman saw calm waters. The tension lifted, but the memory of those minutes remained. The incident tested nerves, skills, and readiness. It reminded the world that military power is not abstract, it is human, technical, and strategic combined. The Truman sailed on, a floating fortress in an uncertain sea, carrying not just aircraft and missiles, but the lessons of resilience, courage, and preparedness. At 4 a.m., the world almost changed. The missile storm could have reshaped the Red Sea in global calculations. Instead, the U.S. Navy's training, technology, and decisive response prevented disaster. The Truman remains a symbol of naval strength, a reminder that readiness matters, and that the line between chaos and control is measured in seconds, skill, and strategy. 4:02 a.m., the radar screens on USS Harry S. Truman lit up red. Alarms blared across the deck. Sailors